Hey guys, we're here to talk about an incredibly controversial topic, PvP scaling, specifically referring to New World, with the changes made from the closed beta to the open beta. For starters, I did do quite a bit of open world PvP during the closed beta, but I have not done any open world PvP during the open beta because I'm not playing it very much, and saving most things for launch. So I don't have any first-hand experience with the changes made to scaling for the open beta. However, for this particular topic, I don't need any first-hand experience, since I'm not talking about the exact changes New World made, and instead I'm going to talk about PvP scaling as a whole, and what I think about the system in a more general view. Typically, there are two sides to anyone talking about PvP scaling. You have one section of gamers that believe PvP scaling creates a more skill-based game, and rewards players who are naturally good at playing PvP games, good with their twitch muscles and response times, as opposed to rewarding the player who simply spends more time in the game gearing up. And on the other side of things, you have some players who are wrong. But no, more seriously, the other side of gamers who don't like PvP scaling generally think that MMORPGs should reward time spent in the game, and entirely be vertical progression, and solely rewarding players who can spend quite a bit of time in the game grinding. If you haven't gathered already, I am completely pro PvP scaling, and I believe it is the only good way to do PvP. This video is going to be talking about why I think that, and more specifically talking about 3 arguments I hear against PvP scaling that I think are completely wrong. The most popular argument I hear, and the first one we will cover, is any version of someone saying that time spent in the game should matter in an MMORPG. I've seen people say that they've spent 1,000 hours in the game, and that should matter more than someone that just started. I've seen this expressed in the version of people saying that games should stop catering to casual players, or people saying that RPGs or MMORPGs are completely about the grind and how much time you put into the game. All of these are wrong in different ways. However, the general gist of the idea that time should mean something does not or should not apply to anything else we do in life. Whether people like it or not, skill and talent play a role in everything else we do. In every form of martial arts, whether you look at the UFC, mixed martial arts in general, or even down to jiu-jitsu, judo, karate, whatever you want to take, it requires a significant amount of time in any of these arts in order to achieve a black belt, obviously excluding mixed martial arts. And more often than not, someone who has a black belt is more likely to win the match. This is overall due to the fact that they've gained an immense amount of wisdom, decision-making, speed, and general knowledge about the art over that amount of hours. However, this is not due to the fact that they've spent those hours, but rather due to the lessons they've learned along the ways. Someone with significantly less time can learn these lessons much earlier through talent and skill. I have seen many times, both as a viewer and a participant, a fighter with less time put in overall defeat someone with much more time put into the sport, simply due to the fact that they were more skilled. This can be seen at the highest level of competition like the UFC, when John Bones Jones won the title at 23 years old, obviously not being able to put in as much time as those older than him and the people he took the title from. Time put in does not always mean more skill, and it should not for some reason display who should win or lose. Now you might say that I'm comparing a video game to real life equivalents, but that shouldn't really matter given that most of us treat video games as a real life hobby or sport, and spend quite a bit of time playing video games when we should probably be playing a sport. Hoping for your time invested in the game to suddenly give you an immediate win is the equivalent of a participation trophy, saying simply because I've been on the team this long, I should earn a spot off the bench and get a reward for the time I put in. When in reality, the person who performs better in the moment, regardless of how much time they spent training, should win the game or the match. If you've played 1,000 hours in New World, harvesting, crafting, and town board missioning your way up to 60 does not suddenly mean you should beat someone with 1/10 the experience, who spent the entirety of their 100 hours PvPing. This is especially true in New World, since we don't get PvP experience for repeatedly killing the same people, which can definitely happen when you're engaging in a lot of open world PvP in a very close amount of time. You may not level up as fast as you should, or level up nearly as fast as someone who's speedrunning to the end. This does not mean the lower level player is less skillful, in fact they should be more skillful than the level 60. A PvP scaling system, putting everyone on the same baseline of gear, allows the people who are actually more skilled in combat to win more often than not. Higher level players should still have a plethora of advantages through gems, perks, and way more passives, along with the fact that they should technically be more skilled at combat, given that they've had a lot more experiences. In a properly PvP scaled system, if you are higher level and losing, this should be representation that you are not as good as you think. Another argument I hear when it comes to PvP scaling is that it won't matter in 2 weeks, or it won't matter in a month, or it won't matter in 2 months because everyone will be max level. This is entering the game with an entirely incorrect mentality. Whether or not you want to burn through the game and get to level 60 in 2 weeks or a month is completely based off perspective. I, for one, will be taking my time, enjoying the scenery, and soaking up every part of the game that I can, like I play most of every game. I am not in a rush to get to any particular level, and I enjoy playing the game as a whole at a slower pace. I will most likely still manage to get 4 to 5 hours of gameplay on a given day, and if there's a proper PvP scaling system in the game, I'll most likely spend a lot of that PvPing. There's a very high likelihood that I could get near 100 hours in the game and be nowhere near the end. I've done this with many games before, no matter how much content they had. I have 350 hours in a game like Valheim and still haven't killed all the bosses because I enjoy experiencing the entirety of the game and not rushing to any one point. So the thought that this won't matter in a given amount of time because everyone will be max level is wrong on every part of it. Not only because you can't force everyone to be max level at a certain point, but also because MMORPGs are designed to be able to bring new players in throughout the entirety of its life. When you bring new players into the game and the rest of the population's at 60, that new player will not experience PvP for the first 60 levels no matter how long it takes them, because a lack of PvP scaling will mean that they will get slaughtered in a matter of hits. We should not write off any system in any game off just because it won't matter at a certain point. Final Fantasy XIV has actually lasted and thrived as long as it has because they don't treat older content like it won't matter at a certain point. Everything they add is still usable at this point and still gets played fairly often. Lower level dungeons still need to be ran. They give incentives for higher level players to play lower level dungeons and content because they want everything to matter at any point because they will always have an influx of new players, or at least that's what their goal is. If New World doesn't have a goal to have new players coming in and every part of the game matter at every stage, then they will probably die off fairly quickly. They need open world PvP to matter to everyone because they need to appeal the game to new players at every stage in the game. The third thing that I hear quite often is people using small gaps of victory as proof that the PvP scaling isn't too bad. I've seen examples given that at level 11 they killed a level 16, or at level 16 they killed a 22. So clearly the open beta scaling is not as bad as it's being led on. This may be true, and the open beta scaling may not be as bad as people are saying. However, a small example like a 5 to 10 level gap is not a good example. Like I just said, the game needs to appeal to a player base that may not be there yet. In 2 months' time, a lot of players may be max level, and they need to be able to draw in new players to the game, and those players be able to PvP if they'd like, which means there will be a much bigger gap than 5 to 10 levels. The game needs to be properly scaled for a much bigger gap than 5 to 10 levels if they plan to go with a PvP scaling system. All in all, when it comes to the scaling system, Amazon just simply needs to decide what it is they're going to do. There are plenty of games out there that don't use a PvP scaling system, and although I think this is the incorrect way to approach things, it can be done, and they can put in enough scaled instance PvP to allow the more skilled players to still compete. If they do put a PvP scaling system in, it needs to be scaled for the entirety of the game and not just for a subset of levels. No matter which way they go, they will find complaints either way. You have a lot of players complaining in the open beta that Amazon's catering to a less skilled set of players who simply have a lot more time to grind. And in the closed beta, you had a lot of players complaining that the scaling was bad and helping lower level players because they couldn't win when they were higher. The reality is that the scaling could be dead equal. And if you're the more skilled level 60 player versus level 20, you should win. If you're the more skilled level 20 player versus level 60, you should win. And this is how I believe it should be. Skill and talent should be rewarded because time invested in a game is not skill. Tom Brady should not beat Patrick Mahomes simply because he's played the game longer, and he would not want to. He would like to beat him in a Super Bowl because he played better, he had more skill at that given moment, and made better decisions in that game, not because his age alone has warranted him a trophy. Even in industries where time itself warrants you some sort of special treatment, like in the general workforce, where the last one in is typically the first one out in terms of layoffs or being let go, the world should really operate in a way where your time invested means nothing if you are not the best person at the job. The best person in any given job should be the one to keep it because we should be striving for exceptionalism and excellence. If someone has spent 1,000 hours inside of a game and cannot beat someone with 10, then they should start questioning what they've spent that 1,000 hours on. A common complaint with all of this is that if there's PvP scaling, then why do levels even matter, or why are they in the game? And I think the answer is pretty simple. They are for PvE. The reason PvE and PvP need to work differently is because the AI in PvE cannot adapt to a situation, they cannot alter their tactics, and they are coded to be predictable and deciphered. PvE content needs to have level gating, gear progression, and a disadvantage to the player because the AI can be outsmarted and planned against. Any real fan of PvP does not need an advantage given due to their gear because they are looking for competition against another intelligent player, who can adapt, adjust, and change their plan on the fly. Developers have to give us a PvE system that forces us to jump through hoops, because at this present moment in time and technology, we are simply smarter than the NPCs. If you're smarter than the player on the other side of the game, then you should win that as well. But they have the same ability to think on the fly, change, and adapt, therefore PvP should be a level playing field where the player themselves control the outcome. This is no doubt a controversial topic, and this is probably the most controversial I've been in a video. So if you disagree, hop in the comments, let me know why. I'd definitely like to see some different point of views, and see if it changes my mind at all, and see if I've been looking at PvP scaling in the wrong light. I do believe that Amazon will find a middle ground before launch, or revert it back to the closed beta system. And if I'm wrong, I'll still play New World, however, I might PvP a whole lot less. Hopefully this video was entertaining or enlightening for you. I appreciate you joining me, and I will see you next time.